The exhibitions that together make up the Ghost Ship and the Sea Change are not meant to be experienced in any particular order, but a pre-recorded guided tour has to start somewhere, and because the curatorial starting point for this edition of the biennial was Franska Tomten, this is also where we will begin. Franska Tomten, which can be translated as the French plot of land, is located in the historical harbour of Gothenburg. The area got its name in 1784 when it was exchanged for the Caribbean island of Saint Barthélemy as part of a trade deal between Sweden and France. Until 1878, Sweden ran Saint Barthélemy as a colony, using it as a free port for the transatlantic slave trade. As the 2021 edition of the biennial coincides with the city of Gothenburg celebrating its 400-year jubilee, I was interested in focusing on other ways of narrating the city's past. How does it change our perspective of the city if we look at it from this particular plot of land? At Franska Tomten today, there are no official gestures of commemoration of the victims of the transatlantic slave trade or of the shared history between Saint Barthélemy and Gothenburg. But there are buildings and historical artworks that remind us of how exploitative actions and violence elsewhere create wealth and welfare right here. They also remind us that the colonial project and the world order it established is not in the past, as we still live amongst its material and ideological effects. The transatlantic house, the court of appeal, the casino and the house of emigrant, they make up a fragmented map of how the history of the past 400 years has carried over into our own times. The biennial has invited artists, writers and academics to respond to this site. Salad Hilal's work takes one of the existing artworks on site by Arvid Bryt as a starting point, reworking it and presenting it from a different perspective. Ibrahim Mahama's work, showing arms of day laborers tattooed with their names and places of birth, draw connections between the colonial rule in Ghana and contemporary precarious working conditions. The work by Norbese Philip is made up of excerpts from her poem Zong, which reworks a legal document from 1781 describing a massacre of enslaved people at sea, by disassembling the words used in the original document and making a new text out of them. Other voices and perspectives of the incident can be heard. At Röda Sten Konsthall, the exhibition continues to explore the relations between trade, capital, justice and migration. The first work you encounter is Hiranabi's film All That Perishes at the Edge of Land, documenting the Gadani shipbreaking yard in Pakistan through the voices of the workers as well as one of the ships, moving poetically between dreams, hopes, fear and death.
यहाँ कोई भी शौक से नहीं रहते, यहाँ कोई भी जुल्म की चक्की से बाहर नहीं है, हर एक जुल्म की चक्की के अंदर है.
Close by are two more works about the contemporary shipping industry. Benjamin Gerda's video documenting the struggles of the dock workers' union in the container port in Gothenburg, focusing on the tensions between local struggles for justice and global infrastructures.
1 maj, är det en helgdag? Ja, sa jag. Det är ju vår helgdag.
And Michael Baer's Invisibility Chronicles that narrates the true story of a Gemini oil tanker stranded in the Red Sea, connecting colonial pasts with contemporary geopolitics. The colonial continuum is addressed in several other works, such as the documentation of Silvano Lora's intervention at the celebration in 1992 in Santo Domingo of Columbus's arrival in the Americas, or Daniela Ortiz, The Empire of Law, examining the role of the legal system in legitimizing colonialism, and Tabitha Rezer's video, Sorry for Real, asking us to consider the real purpose of Western cultures, asking for forgiveness when their exploitation is continued through contemporary capitalism, white supremacy, and patriarchy. Anna Ling's and Jessica Warboy's paintings portray the sea from different perspectives. Anna Ling from the point of view of the eelgrass meadows on the Gothenburg ocean floor, put under stress by our industrial culture, and Warboy's through a bodily encounter with the North Atlantic, dragging her canvases through the waves, letting the pigments be moved across their surfaces. The exhibition architecture at Röda Sten was designed by the collective Kooperative für Darstellungspolitik, using as a reference a 17th century transatlantic ship Havmannen that sank outside Gothenburg in 1683 and still remain in the waters outside the city. Their architecture is an integral part of the story told by the biennial. With none of the walls being straight, it is both a problem and a support for the artworks, representing how the ruins of the past continue to frame our present, but also how they can be repurposed with different goals in mind. At the Museum of World Culture, 2 works are integrated into the museum's collection display. Ariella Aisha Azouley's film Undocumented, Unlearning Imperial Plunder proposes that there is a direct connection between the objects in European museums that were looted or unfairly acquired during the colonial times and the asylum seekers from those same countries trying to enter Europe today. These objects are those people's documents, says Azouley. Oscar Lara's project within heritage movements takes the collection of ancient Peruvian textiles held at the museum as a point of departure. The textiles were stolen and brought to Sweden by a Swedish diplomat in the 1930s. In 2008, Peru asked for them to be repatriated, and they became the focal point for a diplomatic dispute between the 2 countries. Lara has researched and copied the textiles with the help of Swedish experts and money. The installation shows the copies together with a video documenting the process of making them and photographs of how the original textiles were displayed at the museum in the past. The project addresses the politics of display aesthetics as well as the colonial foundations of ethnographic collections in European museums and how cultural change occurs when objects are relocated. At the Palm House in the Garden Society of Gothenburg, the biennial shows Pedro Neves Marquez' video Linnaeus and the Terminator Seed. Neves Marquez asks if there is a deterministic evolutionary line connecting 18th century botany to contemporary transgenics. In the film, Swedish botanist Carl Linnaeus' systematization of nature is used as a point of departure to consider how the colonial management of reproduction is connected to the post-natural conditions governing current biotechnology. At Konsthallen Blå Stället, global trade infrastructures and the possibility of resistance is explored in 2 works. AAA Cargo by Solveig Q. Suez is a part fiction, part documentary about the New Silk Road, the Chinese Belt and Road Initiative. The film shows how landscapes are changed to make way for the new roads and train tracks connecting China with the rest of the world, but also how local communities start to use them for their own purposes. In the installation Timeless, a collaboration between Solveig Q. Suez and Shansai Lyric, the starting point is the Chinese word for counterfeit, Shansai, which literally means mountain hamlet. In the work, 4 different hamlets are mirrored in each other: New York's Canal Street, the Swiss Jura Mountains, the Chinese hermit retreat Mount Lu, and the performance of Shakespeare's Hamlet on board an East India trader in 1604. The work examines the entanglement of trade and notions of authenticity, but also how translation, or rather creative mistranslation, is the potential for subversion of power and the generation of new meaning. Using the construction of a stage to show 3 videos, it is also an infrastructure creatively misused.
Some consider the goods to be stolen, but the police are the real robbers, stealing the property of those they call thieves. Something is rotten in the state of Denmark. When one vendor's goods are stolen by police, others pitch in to help them start over. What is considered bootleg has less to do with the origin of the product than with who is peddling it.
At Göteborg Konsthall, questions concerning historiography are in focus. We have also reached a part of the biennial where the plot has moved from the 18th century into our own times, looking at how the effects of the colonial ideology is encountered today in our own society. Jonas J. Magnusson and Cecilia Grönberg have conducted fieldwork on the mountains Billingen and Kinnekulle, not far from Gothenburg, during more than 20 years. The mountains' multi-layered geological stratification is a reference for their excavation of the different layers of knowledge generated about the area through locally produced printed matter, research, and images. At the center of the inquiry is how local knowledge, which is often considered amateurish and of lesser value than the grander historical perspectives, can be a way to challenge dominant narratives. Salad Hilaul's installation Vanus Labo also starts from local history, namely a Swedish 17th century painting found at Gävle Konstmuseum. In the painting, we see a group of white children washing a black child. The gesture can be interpreted in different ways. As part of Hilaul's research into the representation of the African diaspora in Swedish art history, he asks us to look beyond what we think we already know and examine the familiar as if for the very first time. In addition to the video, the installation is comprised of a number of sculptures based on found objects and a particular blue light transforming its surroundings. The three works at the center of the exhibition all deal with the longing for complexity from different perspectives. Fatima Moayim's tiny but strong self-portrait insists on the right not to be seen as a representative of simplistic categories such as gender, class, or skin color. The textile installation by Erika Arts and Juan Linares show intricately sewn and painted canvases made in response to a period of illness and exhaustion in search of a deeper meaning and connection with the world than provided by a society obsessed with productivity and information-driven legibility. Unni Hjerten's film More Bacteria Than I follows her protagonist's desire to recover from a burnout and post-traumatic stress disorder through cultivating the land and caring for the microorganisms that keep both the planet and the human body alive.
Alltså motsättningen är ju liksom när man ser att människan står överst på en pyramid och kontrollerar och brukar och administrerar dyrene och plantorna och jorda och mikroorganismerna längst ned liksom. Att det är ett slags hierarki. Och det är ju liksom helt latterlig att laga ett hierarki utav det, fordi utan mikroorganismerna inget liv.
The last two works of the exhibition also tell stories from an embodied perspective. Lisa Tan's installation Little Petra recounts in text a racist incident in a Swedish design store. Displayed with the text is the chair Little Petra, an example of Scandinavian design from the 1930s. Tying the two together, the artist reflects on objects of desire and belonging. Conny Carlson Lundgren's installation, Our Trip to France, is based on a travel diary written in the summer of 1977 by 4 young homosexual men from the Gothenburg area during their stay at a gay liberation camp in the south of France. Their journal entries are given voice in the film by a young generation of activists, creating a space for the meeting of experiences and desires, memories and hopes for the future across generational boundaries. In addition to the 6 exhibition venues, the biennial has commissioned a series of site-specific sound works. Each work relates to one or several sites in Gothenburg, opening up an oral register for the encounter with different layers of the city's past and present.